panelists. Let me first introduce our esteemed volunteers here. Some of you've already heard of. So Pia here is an oncologist and heads the FICAN West, as we just heard. Reetta, we just heard, being a senior scientist at Orion Corporation. Manu, being the co-founder of Genomill. And then we have Petro Poutanen, is from the Finnish Research Impact Foundation, which may be new to some of you. And initially I thought I'd like the panelists to give a quick highlights as to why they think they're here, i.e. a short description of their career path that led us to be where they are today, very briefly. And let's start with Pia, if I may, and just give a quick introduction on your career path and why you are here in terms of the industry-academia collaborations.
Okay, thank you. I started my studies at the biochemistry unit about 30 years ago, so I have also been doing basic science in Jyrki Heinäsko's PhD, and then afterwards I have been working in hospital as a clinical oncologist, and I have been involved in more than 30 clinical trials as a principal or sub-investigator, and mostly trials concerning melanoma patients or breast cancer patients. And I have done also some translational research.
Excellent. Thank you, Pia. And Reetta, you already sort of gave us a quick hint as to your career path here locally.
Yes.
You want to give a quick update on that? Anything to add?
Yeah, many things have happened since the last 15 minutes, but yeah, I maybe want to mention that it was really good timing for me to join Orion, because they were building up the unit, and since I come from the university and all the new technologies and all the assays, well, the technologies are there, so then I've been able to bring some of that to Orion and collaborate, and yeah, to bring my knowledge to Orion from the perspective that I have learned.
Cross-fertilization.
Yes.
And Manu then, having been also in ETH in Zurich, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And in the US.
Yeah.
So you've been around, and now you're here in Finland. How do you find it?
Oh well, this is the place where I always wanted to come back to. So I was happy to go to Boston first, spend some time there, then to go to Switzerland, spend some time there, and I never actually considered staying in any of those places, but rather just learning stuff and then coming back at some point.
Okay.
So then time was ripe at some point, and actually Boston was a great place, especially to observe this kind of academic entrepreneurship, a very close hand.
Yeah, if you don't mind the winter. Well, Petro, then again, your employer is not a household name for many of us. Would you please elaborate on the Finnish Research Impact Foundation, as to give us a quick background on the foundation and how you ended up in this particular foundation?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to this event also. You asked something about our backgrounds first. Maybe I just briefly tell that I have nothing really in my background related to medical sciences, biotechnology or bioinformatics or anything like that. My background is in social sciences, and from there I have ended up working in a funding sector in which I'm now representing the Finnish Research Impact Foundation as a CEO of the foundation. That's probably the reason why I've been invited here also as a representative of the funding agency. The Finnish Research Impact Foundation, Vaikuttavuussäätiö in Finnish, it was established by the government in 2019, so it's quite a young player in this field. And our all actions and funding are primarily focused on enhancing collaboration between academia and industries in Finland. So all top-level research taking place in the Finnish universities are in the research institutes are in our focus area, and we are coming up with different sort of funding instruments to try to sort of in a soft way to force researchers to do more collaboration, but in terms of the researchers and the academia. So we're not really funding companies, or we are not driven by the company's needs, but the needs of the academia. And that's our focus. We have two funding instruments at the moment, funding for postdocs for 2 years projects in a close cooperation with companies, and one for professors. And actually we have one professor from the Circle of In Flames called Tero Soukka, who just got our funding for 1 year to work with a company. So that's what our foundation is about.
Excellent. Thank you, Petro. So, I mean, the discussion here is about how to improve the industry-academia collaboration, and many of us here have collaborations and have been in the industry, but then again, we have many here who have limited exposure to the industry to begin with. But let's come to that in a bit. And what I'd like to start with is that instead of highlighting all the potential friction points that there can be in when a scientist wants to interact with the industry, then I wonder if each of you could sort of give a quick story on an industry-academia collaboration which, from your perspective, went very well, and maybe there's something we could learn from the positive examples. And I don't know if Pia wants to start quickly on what's a collaboration that, from your perspective, went very well, and why did it go well?
Well, just many years ago, when we didn't have these modern immunotherapies, we were still quite active in, for example, in Finnish melanoma study group to do some investigator-initiated studies. We had interleukin-2, we had interferon, but we really didn't have a lot of sponsors. But we, however, got to have some sponsors from industry and had quite many investigator-initiated trials, which went quite well that time. Of course, the results were not so good as they are now with the modern therapies, but I think we learned a lot about conducting the trial, about the networking, that we know each other, we know how it functions, and then when the new modern therapies came, we were ready. So when they called us that, do you want to have ipilimumab to your patients? So I was, yes, I'll take it. So we were in a way ready for modern therapies because we had practiced in a way so much.
Excellent. Reetta, you have had not decades of experience with this, but you've certainly had your share of working with companies and academicians. So, any example you'd like to share?
Well, I maybe want to say in general, that was mentioned already, that this industrial PhD student programs that we are utilizing at Orion, or we have collaboration with the university in that program, but also the postdocs in companies. Now, while I've been Orion, I already know there's a handful of people at least that are in these programs, or then the master students who are doing their master thesis at Orion at the moment. And I believe that collaboration also helps to make the bridge smaller between the companies.
So from your perspective, the IPHD program and the master programs, protocol programs, seem to be working well? Yes,
actually, in my opinion, they are. And we have many students coming, either the PhD program or the master students.
Excellent. Maybe during the course of the panel we'll hear from the students as well.
And how easy was it?
Yeah, how is it? Manu?
Okay, the case of Genomill is maybe a little bit special because the starting point of our technology is actually not in research conducted at Turku University, but rather research conducted in Switzerland. So therefore the involvement of Turku University with Genomill has been quite minimal actually on a formal level. and therefore there are very few stories from that collaboration that I could actually share. But one very positive thing, which is an ongoing thing, is that we keep getting excellent students to come do their practices and diploma theses and so forth to us from the biotech department. And this has been an excellent sort of informal mode of collaboration that keeps on going with very good success.
Okay, well, that's very good. So it seems to be working well, and you are supplied with eager and knowledgeable students.
That's right.
Excellent. Well, that's very positive. Well then, if we go on a little bit back to the higher level, and I'd like to go back to Petro again here, in that would you, Petro, please discuss your perspective on the industry-academia collaboration? You mentioned what the ethos of the Research Impact Foundation is, but where do you think we are on a national level today in Finland in this collaboration, and how is it facilitated, and from your perspective, how is it going, and what are the some friction points that you have identified?
Well, yeah, it's quite a big question.
All in 3 minutes.
Maybe the fact that we are here today and the people who are here around, for example, Reetta on my left-hand side, you just explained how well are working many of the programs that Orion is utilizing at the moment, like Poroko program and industrial PhD programs, and hopefully our program as well. I know you have at least 2 projects, ongoing projects at Orion, funded by us. So this is one of the signs that we do have many of those instruments, and they are working well, and people, PhD students, postdocs, are eagerly applying for these programs, and companies are welcoming them. So that's a good sign, and it's something new that is taking place actually. And on the other hand, what this gentleman on the right-hand side of me is a living example of sort of a hybrid person, which is just about emerging here in our research community at a little bit different time in different fields, but it's more and more common nowadays to actually, from the very scratch, think about setting up an own company, having some licensed technologies in your pocket to try to make a difference with your research endeavors over the years to the world by the means of companies as an entrepreneur or in collaboration and so forth. So these are all living examples and really good signs of the system, or the culture more likely, within the researchers that is in the process of transformation, let's say, hopefully. Thinking about the national level, of course, we have a lot of positive signs as well, like the ongoing process of the research, development and innovation funding at the national level, which is about to increase yearly, starting from the next year over the next 6 to 7 years, up to the 4% of the GDP, which has been a big political process. So more and more money is coming, but we need to be ready to use it also in a fruitful way. This may be a little small recap and some of the aspects of the system to answer your questions.
Sure. I mean, it's all understandable and sounds that things are progressing to the right direction. And of course, I mean, there's always the fear that when on a government level one wishes to encourage going towards applied research and industry collaboration and so forth, that the pendulum swings too far, and then the scientists get the impression that everybody needs to do applied research, but that's not the case. And when within the InFlames group we have been talking about invention disclosures and whatnot, it doesn't mean that the government or the university sort of would wish to encourage people to do applied research. High-level basic research is the absolute necessity, and it's just that we need to sort of facilitate that these high impact research would translate into services and products that will eventually help the patients. That's what it's all about. But this collaboration is not always a walk in the park. I mean, there may be issues with IP rights, legislation. The invention-related legislation is very different in Finland than, say, in Sweden even, but more uniform with the rest of the European countries. Communication is very often a big thing, and false expectations. I remember Anne Marimäki said that that sometimes that when you have a scientist that comes to the research services at University of Turku with an invention that he or she, the inventor, thinks is great, they always thought that I want 1 million, which is very often not a very good start for a discussion, which is typically just an early invention. And there's also red tape within the companies and also in the academia. So all of these have been issues. And how about Manu? I mean, have you come across the red tape and issues with IP and whatnot, and how have you solved these issues?
Okay, so most of the Genomill IP has now been filed completely within the company, so therefore we are kind of self-sufficient there. The first patent, though, that is a patent that belongs to my former employer in Switzerland, and the starting point for the licensing discussion that was, okay, sounds very good what you're about to do, but first of all, we don't do exclusive licenses, and we don't do licenses with any non-Swiss companies. That was the starting point, but about 380 days later, we haven't had an exclusive license to a Finnish company. So sometimes it makes sense to keep negotiating.
Okay, well, that sounds good. So that was crossing the red tape, certainly.
Yeah.
Very good. Any other? Petro, anything you'd like to highlight? Because you've certainly come across with problems in the when you fund a scientist and who wants to work together with the company, and any particular challenges that you have encountered?
Yeah, a lot of challenges, of course, and we are putting a lot of energy also within the foundation to identify the challenges and what can be done about them. So it's a really critical area for us to, in order to develop our own funding instruments and be of help to researchers and partners. So we have a lot of knowledge about it. Maybe the IPR questions are quite a regular a stream of endless problems and negotiations, but they are to be solved, and there are a lot of expertise for in universities and companies, and it's all about negotiation, as you said, and sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it's easier if you have a partner, long-term partnership behind you already, and you're applying for funding together. Maybe I want to highlight something related to the with respect to, you said something about the false expectations. How to manage those expectations of the partners in these projects it's quite a tricky business actually, and what we have learned is that it's actually one of the factors that predicts also the success of the project in many senses, because it's closely related to having a common understanding of the goals of the project in the first place, and to have a common research question. So scientists have quite a broad interest on phenomena in general terms, and companies quite limited and focused focus on what they are doing and achieving. So that's something to start negotiating first and find a common overlapping area of these interests. So researchers need always accept some of the limitations and restrictions coming from the collaboration with companies, and companies need to accept the risk that nothing will maybe come out of the project in the end. So that's one of the points to highlight here, at least.
Yeah, thank you. Then let's switch gears here, and Reetta, we have a good number of students here in the audience, who have only been exposed to academia. Their co-workers are in academia, their teachers are in academia, all the mentors that they have are in academia, so they are in the academic bubble, which is acceptable. But then again, very often when you're in the bubble, you have limited understanding of what it's like to be in a company. What changed for you, or what advice would you give to anybody who would wish to consider a career in a company? Broadly, I mean, is there any particular advice you'd like to share, or what? How did it feel for you?
Well, yeah. First of all, I want to mention that I've been really enjoying working at Orion, but then on the other hand, I also enjoyed working at the university. So I believe I have experienced good sides from both of them. But then when joining the Orion, there was of course differences. So in the academic research, you are more free and you have freedom to explore, and you are not so restricted what to study. And if you find something interesting, you can just follow do following experiments. But then in the company, even though we also want to find out new, but it's not so that you can just do what you want. It has to be inside the company interests, and you have to really communicate that with the management and the different units at the company. And how would I advise, or what would be my? Oh, I don't know. Can I have an advice? But if you are interested in working in the companies, I could really recommend that to apply. For example, we have had, and I believe that many companies have had quite many open positions now. So it's not something that is really, well, of course it's always difficult to get a new job, but it's available. There is positions open, and
but finish your degrees first.
Yes. Yeah, but I can really recommend. I have learned a lot as well.
Excellent, thank you, Reetta. Pia, you work with a good number of international companies and sponsors who come to sponsor clinical trials, and how do you find those interactions? I mean, is it easy to work with these guys, and how do you find that collaboration?
Well, now I find it quite easy because I have been there so many years, so there are usually, it's going so that the same people are in the companies and they can change the company, but they are still on the oncology branch. So
they're still the same people.
They are the same people still. So it helps when you know the right people, and then you know how the company is working, and how probably it will be that their study will go smoothly and you will get help for it, and another company is different, so it makes a difference.
Very good. So what about the audience? I know everybody's thinking about the drinks and the networking and meeting the friends now that you've met all the strangers. But any questions to our volunteers here? Reetta has a question here, and does somebody have a microphone for her? This is not pre-arranged.
Yeah, so thank you so much. So I just wonder, I just had met Tuomas, who is in Biovia now. He said that they have pretty much recruited everyone they can think of from the university of our center. And it seems that you have so many opportunities and open positions now in Turku. So what do we do about this? Because we also need some time to train them. They need to finish their masters and also PhDs. And to me, it's extremely important that people are trained in immunology, because without that you cannot really do immunology, be good in immunology industry, of course. There you have good examples who can now do, but this is, how do we handle this? We have also, in your companies, when you recruit, we also have, for instance, in Inflames, we have recruited excellent professors, who will and other scientists, and they have their families. If we recruit them from abroad, how is this taken into account in your companies? How do we build this ecosystem in a sustained fashion so that you don't drain our pipeline?
This easy question is answered by Reetta.
Yeah, so of course there needs to be a balance, of course. The aim is not to steal all the most talented students for the companies, but yes, I see it more as an opportunity because of course there has been now recruitment, but it's not that there's still, Turku is quite small and not that many positions, so I see that as a balance. So if, for example, for students, if they consider going to companies or they have anyway considered that, and then if there's just an open position, they might apply once they have finished their degrees. And then for the people coming from abroad, we have some people, our group leader came from abroad with his family, and at least I cannot speak on his behalf, but I believe that he has really enjoyed made home here in Finland, and we have a network in Orion who helps, and then in our group we are really we do a collaboration, we help even outside the work, and so that he was not left alone or any other colleague who has arrived from abroad.
If I may just follow up, so my point actually was exactly so it's so important to have those networks that you in companies and we in academia help those who be, so that also the family members, spouses get jobs and the family gets settled down. And then another point was that impact is, influence needs to have impact. And one extremely important impact to me is this training of these new experts through academic groups.
Very good. Petro had a quick comment.
Yeah, I just want to briefly comment that it was actually a really crucial question, because we all know that we have a lack of educated, very the best of the best expertise in Finland, and it's just getting worse and worse over the years. And everybody who's coming here and being educated in high professional level places like this within Turku University, of course, it's very important to carefully think how these people will spend more time here, how they will find job from Orion or from somewhere else, and how they will feel this place as a community and home, and how these networks are being built already from the very scratch that people are starting their educational pipeline, as you described it. So it's really an important aspect, actually.
Thanks, Petro. Sari?
Yes, I would also like to comment about how to attract talents to companies. That our message to any student who is considering this, that I think no one shouldn't think that the science in the companies is somehow lower quality or really restricted. I think it's the other way around, because in academic environment your aim is to get publications. Of course they are peer reviewed, but no one normally asks you for the all raw data from every single experiments, while in companies you need to make sure that you have all possible controls and impossible controls, and whenever you are getting closer to the clinical studies, your data, raw data, will be evaluated by regulatory authorities, by investors, so it's really heavy due diligence from many point of view. So we really need to be more, in a way, consistent, and I think it's harder in the companies actually to make something important.
I would tend to agree, but I'm biased. Any other questions from the audience? Well, there's several hands up. Over there. They will fight over the microphone.
Thank you, and thank you for today. I actually had a slightly broader question. I feel today has a very heavy cancer focus, which is understandable. But I was wondering if you have any insight in, for example, autoimmune disorders or neuroimmunology and research in those directions.
The panelists don't seem to be willing to open up. The short answer was no. Okay, next question. We'll have to talk about it during the break, okay? Yes, please.
Helen Cooper, Oak Academy University. I thought of this question while listening to Reetta's talk, so perhaps she's in the best position to answer, but I'll take input from anybody. So, Horizon Europe Framework Program is offering funding to develop tools to replace animal experiments. If researchers in academia were to develop such a tool that could then ultimately be used also in drug development and industry, what sort of properties would you like this tool to have?
Well, one thing that I at least want to mention, because as was mentioned, we need to have all the regulatory authors have to agree when we are taking something in the clinics. So the model has to be so well much used and validated that it would be approved, and all the details would have to be there. But maybe, I don't know if anyone else can answer more, but yeah.
Thanks, Helen.
Yeah.
It is a broad question, and how to reduce the number of animal experiments, and that's certainly many of us are striving towards. There was just a recent piece of news that the FDA no longer requires animal studies for approval. I don't believe that, but I haven't taken a deeper dive. Let's see.
And maybe I can still mention
please.
that, for example, we are also utilizing these 3D cultures and co-culture systems that can at least mimic more the 3D environments to be able to use less animals in some of the studies.
Good. I'm sensing the anxiety in the audience, but any further discussion? There's one. There's hands up there, over there.
Hi, I'm Ines. I work in University of Turku in Biocity. Thank you all for the great panel. And I would like to follow up a bit in the recruitment phase. Sometimes, like Timo said, that we are in this academic bubble. And we would like to try and see other opportunities for us than academic life. And some people struggle a bit to find open positions, and I would like for you to tell me what is the best way to approach your companies and to send our curriculum and send our cover letters. Is it these kind of conversations, or just sending it by email to your contact that
Excellent.
you can see?
How to best approach your companies? Genomill?
We are actually very happy to receive email, and it's basically the content of the email. So an email that looks like you have done your due diligence with the company, and that you actually show genuine interest in what the company is doing. That's I would say is primary, and then kind of not the complete secondary, but anyway, what comes after is your former skill set. Just to show that you have actually done your homework regarding the company, because you also get those emails just saying, "Dear Professor," not even bothering to find the name of the professor, but yeah, that's not the way to do it. But anyway, showing like your own initiative, that's the way.
Okay. Reetta?
Yes, and one thing I wouldn't mention is that you would be interested in common test. Do you like it in the companies? That is maybe something I wouldn't. But yes, we get some contacts, or our group leader gets, and we do consider, for example, if it's well, more often it has been maybe a PhD student that wants to apply into a program or start to come to Orion to work with us, but also we have also had recruitments regularly. So if you have sent your CV, and as said, it shouldn't be an email that you just send all the companies. You should really pay attention that what you are applying, what would you want, and what would you bring to the company. if you would join us. That your key expertise.
But also, I mean, I can understand. I mean, if you've never been exposed to a company, it's sort of a high hurdle to just send an email that I'd like to come to work with you. But rather, there is this concept of setting up what's called an informational interview, and I've asked help from many people many times in my life, and I've never been refused help. If you ask help, you talk to somebody that, could I come and talk to you for half an hour what it's like to be in your company, work there? Most people will say yes, okay, let's go have a cup of coffee and whatnot, and you spend half an hour, do lunch, whatever. But you have to ask. If you don't ask, it doesn't happen. And then you get a feel, and then at least you have a contact you can talk to, and that's very valuable. But this was not supposed to be a career counseling session, and there's still wine left. And if there's one burning question to the panel on the industry-academia collaboration, there is the last question.
It's probably just in a nutshell for both corporate and also for the clinical side. How the university can better help you? What are the needs that, for example, you identify that you guys need some support that academia could provide to you, and also for clinical studies ongoing now, how the research leaders could collaborate. I know that there's a lot of collaboration going on, and have you already identified, Pia, something that, we are in need of these and we need support?
Let's start with Pia. What do you need? What do you want from the university?
Well, I think we have quite a lot of collaboration already, but it could be, of course, more. And I think it's good to find a suitable clinical collaborator for your project, what you want to study. And then, of course, the funding is one problem. So
more money.
Yes.
Excellent.
More money,
Thank you. Reetta, what do you want from academia?
Yes, well, the basic research is done really well at the universities. So of course, if the ideas come often from the published data or from the university. So if there is something really interesting, we can we do invite speakers to come to us and explain their research and results. And this could be at least added or increased. And well, this is maybe not totally directly answer your questions, but I believe that companies are lacking is the clinical samples actually, because when working at the university it was much more depending, of course, of the group and your supervisors, how are the relationships and how well they have been interacting. But
excellent. Reetta wants clinical samples.
Yes.
Petro.
Yeah, I just want to add, even though it's not a career clinic, as you said, that these collaborative research projects are actually quite a good way to pop into company and have a closer look at what's going on there. If it's my thing to actually work in an environment like this, and at the same time you are making new connections and better networks, and it's easier later on your research career to pick up a phone and call to the company.
Manu, what do you want from academia?
Okay, so first of all, I don't think it's surprising at all that somebody comes asking for money, because that's what you need to do anything. But and of course you cannot ask 1 million euros from the university or the innovation services to help you out. But one thing that could be very helpful is actually what I've noticed is personal contacts to investors, for instance, is very useful when you are trying to raise funding for your company. And this is something that, to my knowledge, the universities here maybe don't provide that much. You pretty much have to dig those contacts out yourself, or through existing networks that you might have. But this is something I think where the university could really improve.
Okay, research services here out. Excellent. That's the end of the panel. Thank you very much for the panelists, active audience.